consent the quorum call be suspended.
Without objection.
Madam President, 260 years ago, a young nobleman from Poland and a military officer helped lead a rebellion against what he and many others saw as a Russian puppet king in what was known as the post-Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth. He was driven into exile in France, where Lafayette and Benjamin Franklin urged him to go to America to join in the fight, the Revolutionary War. That young nobleman's name, Polish nobleman's name, was Kazimierz Pulaski. When he arrived in America, he wrote to General George Washington and said to him, "I came here where freedom is being defended, to serve it and to live or die by it." Pulaski was at Washington's side and is credited with saving George Washington's life at the Battle of Brandywine. He is remembered fondly as the father of the American cavalry. Pulaski died at age 34 in the fight for freedom and independence in America. Today is Kazimierz Pulaski Day, which we know full well in Illinois, where it is a state holiday. Today, however, we look at the world and realize that freedom is being defended in Ukraine. And today we see Kazimierz Pulaski's spirit and fierce commitment to freedom and human dignity in a heroic young Ukrainian president and in Ukrainian men and women who are fighting to save their nation from another would-be Russian czar. I've been in Congress for a few years. Over the weekend, I had an experience unique to my service in Congress. Early on Saturday morning, hundreds of members of Congress joined a video call with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. I've never seen anything like it. With the Russian military laying siege to his country and a Russian bullseye on his back, President Zelensky spoke to us with remarkable dignity and courage. He didn't mince words about what is happening in Ukraine, the brutal Russian assaults literally trying to destroy his nation. He said we all share the same basic values and dreams: to live our lives in peace, watch our kids grow up, and to kiss them. He said the Ukrainian people are fighting for these basic freedoms, and they are prepared to be friends and share culture with their Russian neighbors if they can. But over the last 12 days, his country, Ukraine, has faced full-fledged war with barbaric attacks on kindergartens, nuclear power plants, apartment buildings, infrastructure, and innocent civilians. Last Thursday, Russia and Ukraine agreed to create humanitarian corridors in Ukraine to allow civilians in areas under the heaviest Russian attacks to evacuate safely. Twice over the weekend, Ukraine was forced to close those corridors because Russia was attacking them mercilessly. This is Vladimir Putin's war, deliberately targeting women and children who've left everything and are trying just to reach safety. This photo shows the result of one horrific attack by Russian soldiers on the people of Ukraine. Many people have seen it. It was on the front page of the New York Times this morning. It took place in the city of Irpin on Sunday. A Russian mortar struck an evacuation point where these civilians were waiting to board bus to go to safety. Irpin's mayor said the attack killed at least 8 people, including a family. Sadly, you can see the children lying in the street. These are among the 364 Ukrainians killed during the last 12 days of Putin's barbaric war. Mr. Putin, these deaths, like the death of that little girl that I showed on the floor last week, are your doing. Your reputation as a war criminal and a bloody tyrant is now sealed in history. More than 1.5 million Ukrainians have fled as refugees to neighboring countries such as Poland and Moldova. The open arms of the Polish people and the Moldovan people to their Ukrainian brothers and sisters is remarkable, and a reminder to the rest of us that we do share common human bonds. Some of you may have seen the moving stories last night on 60 Minutes of the families with their children desperately trying to reach Poland, other countries nearby, so that they can escape the bombs of Vladimir Putin. This tragedy is like nothing we've seen in Europe since World War II. But Putin's war on Ukraine is not simply an attack on one young democracy. It is an attack on democracy itself. I'm proud to represent the city of Chicago. Prouder still that it's the home to so many immigrants that have made a difference in that city and in America. Polish immigrants and descendants of Polish immigrants. Per capita, there's a larger number in Chicago than any place outside of Warsaw. We're also home to many immigrants who trace their heritage to the Baltic states. I happen to be one who does as well. We have such a long history of Ukrainian immigrants coming to our city that there's a neighborhood in Chicago called Ukrainian Village. Last Friday, I went over to the Ukrainian National Museum. It's near their Orthodox church. They take great pride in it. One woman there, who is a Ukrainian artist, had displayed many of the creations she'd made on the wall. And she said to me, "They're for sale, Senator." And I said, "Well, I'm glad to know that." And she says, "And all the proceeds are going to the Ukrainian army." Naturally, I left with one under my arm. Putin's war on Ukraine and the wave of refugees pouring into Poland and other neighboring nations hits home in Chicago. And people from all backgrounds are donating money and goods wherever they can to help. Meist Carpathy is a Chicago area shipping company with experience in Eastern Europe. For 7 days now, the company's shipping facility on the northwest side of Chicago has been an operations center for an incredible volunteer effort to rush critical supplies to Ukraine. People and companies are dropping off supplies of first aid equipment, non-perishable food, diapers, basic essentials, warm clothes, sleeping bags, tents, flashlights. Scores of volunteers assemble the donations into first aid kits and baby kits, whatever is needed. They pack the donations into boxes that will be flown and delivered to the Polish border, where more volunteers deliver them to Ukrainians who need them. People are doing everything they can to support Ukraine's fight for freedom and democracy. Andriy Hera is a banking executive from Oak Brook, Illinois, who was born in Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv. His dad, in-laws, cousins, friends, they're still there in Ukraine. One day last week, he raised $40,000 personally to buy bulletproof vests and helmets, first aid kits, and other supplies. When he learned that it would take weeks for the supplies to reach those who needed them, he decided to pack them into suitcases, board a flight to Poland, and deliver them himself. As Andriy Hera told his supporter, "We are trying to do anything possible to help them." We in the Senate must also do what we can to help Ukraine in its fight for freedom and democracy. Last week, I led more than 40 senators, both parties, Democrats and Republicans, asking President Biden to extend temporary protected status to the 75,000 Ukrainians who are currently in the United States on student and work visas. On Thursday, and I knew he would, the president responded favorably. He's granting that protection. Congress should also act without delay to approve $10 billion this week in emergency aid to assist Ukraine and bolster our NATO allies, as well as support neighboring nations like Poland and Moldova that are providing safe havens to the refugees. And after listening to President Zelensky on Sunday, I thought to myself, how can we possibly be importing Russian oil and gas, giving the profits of those transactions to Vladimir Putin to pay for his war machine? I believe now, and I've co-sponsored the legislation that reaches this goal, that the United States should ban the purchase of Russian oil. to further tighten economic pressure on Putin. I joined the legislation introduced by Senators Murkowski and Manchin to do that. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken is talking with our NATO allies. Many of them seem also willing to consider a ban on Russian oil. Vladimir Putin is threatening not only the security of Ukraine, he's threatening the security of the world. We must not even indirectly fund his war machine. While Putin wages war on democracy, the world, including the United States, will likely pay more to fill our tanks at the gas stations and heat our homes. We have to be ready for that reality. But that is the price today of defending freedom and democracy. The Ukrainians are paying with their lives. We may end up paying some more at the pump. Amid all this utterly outrageous and unnecessary suffering and destruction, all to assuage Vladimir Putin's warped sense of grievance and his twisted nostalgia for the dark days of the Russian Empire, President Zelensky ended his talk with us on Saturday morning on a memorable note. He said, "We are all one big, undefeatable army for freedom, and that we should all live in peace and openness. And despite the horrors inflicted on his people, we must hold on to our humanity." He was a stand-up comedian at one point. He did a movie which was a spoof on someone as unlikely as himself being elected president. Lo and behold, at the next free election, he was elected president of the country. Many people questioned whether he was up to the job. Boy, his detractors are very quiet now. This man has risked his life for his country, as so many are in Ukraine. It is time for us to stand behind Ukraine solidly for their leadership. I hope this crisis ends soon. Until then, the United States and the rest of the civilized world must stand with Ukraine for freedom and democracy. Madam President, I yield the floor. I suggest the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.